Voidmage Gamer is now partnered with Flipside Gaming, so you can use the promo code on their website, all caps, Voidmage, to get 10% off all orders $10 or more. It's a great way that you can support both Flipside Gaming and Voidmage Gamer's channel. Hello guys, welcome back to another Commander Deck Tech video. I know I don't do these too often. I'm going to try to reserve them for when I see a really interesting one, because I could literally just make video after video, every legendary creature, every possible option, and I just wouldn't be putting my heart into it. So this time we're going to be doing Yawgmoth, Thran Physician. From Modern Horizons, the legendary creature, human cleric, protection from humans. He's 4 mana, mono black. You pay 1 life, sacrifice another creature to put a -1/-1 counter on up to 1 target creature, and you draw a card. Another activated ability where you can pay 2 black to discard a card and proliferate. A lot going on there. And I like multi-dimensional, multifaceted commanders. If you've been watching my channel at all in the past 2 years, you might have figured out that my favorite commander is Prosh, Skyraider of Care. And I've been reminded of the whole food chain combo, that interaction, and while that most certainly exists and is kind of an issue in Commander for people who like playing longer than 4 turns, that is far from the only way to play with a commander like Prosh. The argument is the same thing with Yawgmoth, Thran Physician. You have a lot working here. You don't have to be a tryhard and build a deck around something like Ad Nauseam and win within the first 3 turns. You can make a really cool deck that functions with -1/-1 counters, or just counters period, benefiting from Proliferate. You don't have to throw in a bunch of things like Imperial Seal, Dark Confidant, and eventually brag about how your deck cost you $3,000 and you only got about 3 minutes of fun out of it. With Yawgmoth, you have a multi-dimensional commander that is in a lot of ways why I like Prosh, Skyraider of Care. You can sacrifice a creature for no mana. This time it's the cost of 1 life, but there are ways that you can offset it. You can sacrifice a creature for free. Point here is I like doing that. The reasons why I like Prosh is because of the efficiency in that ability. You can put -1/-1 counters on your opponent's creatures, and you get to draw a card. What I like this time around with this commander is you can play control. You get that card draw, you can control the pace of the game, also have a little element of removal there, and you get a whole nother ability that does cost you mana, and you have to discard a card to proliferate on those counters. Now the card itself would trick you into thinking that you just want to do it on the -1/-1 counters, but you have other things like loyalty counters, charge counters. You could even do it on something like a blast zone. It's proliferate the way proliferate has always been. First element of this commander deck I want to go over is creature production. You're going to want to have a lot of creatures to sacrifice because that is a pretty juicy sack outlet, and you want to get all those counters and the card draw. So if you want pure token production, let's go for Hangarback Walker. You also get to benefit from the proliferate, making this thing bigger, but if you want to sacrifice it, you get even more of those Thopters that you can then sacrifice to his ability all over again. I totally think tokens are the way to go, so something that can replenish a token like Ophiomancer. While this is a card that desperately needs a reprint, it's totally the card you want to throw into a Yawgmoth deck. Pawn of Ulamog, Sifter of Skulls, just meant for this deck because you're going to kill your creatures, get more token value for it that you can then sacrifice again. Sengir Autocrat, just pure numbers of creatures, you want that. You want to sacrifice tokens. And although I hate his guts because he's super slow and he's a setup creature, Endrick Sar is worth it. You cast your Yawgmoth, you're going to get 4 Thralls, and Ogre Slumlord is going to get you Rats. And there are the creatures that do come back like Bloodghast, Nether Traitor, and Reassembling Skeleton. Kill them, bring them back. If you want a little bit more flavor, we could go with Butcher Ghoul if you want to fool around with the counters. You want something to put a -1/-1 counter on. Coincidentally, that works out really well with Undying, because the -1/-1 counter and +1/+1 counter, they just cancel each other out, meaning that if this dies and you already put a -1/-1 counter on it, you can just have it keep coming back. So you have something you could also sacrifice, or just any excuse to get more card draw. I think it's worth it. There are other things like Geralf's Messenger and Mikaeus the Unhallowed that do expand upon that strategy. And of course, if you're playing Mikaeus, you're probably going to play Triskelion for that combo. But that's just an interaction. I can appreciate a deck that just builds on the synergy rather than just throws in good stuff black cards. Now, since you are going to be paying life for the ability, expect to be down quite a bit. It's something I am more than willing to do multiple times in a turn. So to offset it, let's just play good creatures in black that gain you life. Deathgreeter, Blood Artist, Zulaport Cutthroat, the Falkenrath Nobles. I mean, you guys know what to expect at this point with black. These creatures see play all over the place in Commander. Now, of course, because you have Proliferate on a Commander, and it's as easy as just 2 mana, you're going to want some things to really abuse. Now, I'm not going to go as far to play Skithiryx, because I just think that's overboard, and you're usually going to end up singling out one player quickly. Ichor Rats is the way to instill fear into your opponents, because you're giving each of them a poison counter. You are giving yourself a poison counter too. However, the good thing about Proliferate is you get to choose what you proliferate. Another cool thing, I honestly believe that Yawgmoth Thran Physician was designed specifically to interact with Archfiend of Ifnir. You have an engine here that just works out beautifully with it. When you cycle or discard another card, you put a -1/-1 counter on each creature your opponents control, and the ability of Yawgmoth allows you to discard a card to do that. So just fantastic how things like that work out. We have some really cool enchantments and artifacts as well that fool around with counters, and it's so cool that we have Font of Agonies not so long ago, but just something you can then add to the Proliferate, that strategy. Whenever you pay life, you put that many blood counters on Font of Agonies, which you're going to be paying life a lot with Yawgmoth. You can remove 4 blood counters from Font of Agonies to destroy a creature. We have things like Black Market. A lot of creatures are going to die. You can proliferate this further, get even more black mana out of the deal. We have mana rocks like Astral Cornucopia, Everflowing Chalice. Making these bigger is going to help you further in the game. Something I think is really cool and really odd, but surprisingly would work out in this deck. Orochi Hatchery enters the battlefield with X charge counters on it. Just keep proliferating, making that 5 mana and tapping it that much more worth it. You get more green snakes out of the deal. And of course, if you really want something to proliferate, look no further than Planeswalkers. Not a whole bunch to choose from, but I really like Liliana of the Dark Realms and Liliana Dreadhorde General. These two just really synergize with the deck. The Dark Realms Liliana has probably one of the coolest alts, even more mana in black, and the Dreadhorde General is just insane in black. Killing your creatures, you're drawing even more cards. Just one of the craziest engines on a Planeswalker. And we of course have other things if you're going for removal. Black Sun Zenith is insane. We already had a synergy with -1/-1 counters, putting even more of them on your opponent's creatures. This is a board wipe. And you of course had the previous -1/-1 counter synergies that fit in just well in this deck. Crumbling Ashes, destroying creatures that you can just put one on, Blowfly Infestation, getting even more -1/-1 counters, and Nestus Scarabs, rewarding you with more creatures to sacrifice for using Yawgmoth's ability. That's pretty much the deck, guys, but it is very cool. Definitely a deck that I'm looking forward to building. I have the whole deck list. It's going to be in the description below. Definitely a commander that I would recommend long before you even think about touching Urza. You have a lot of things you could do. There's really no one way that I feel like is the best way to build this deck, because you have black doing what it does best, sacrificing creatures at the cost of life, doing something really good. Yawgmoth is pretty sweet, and a huge reason why I like him is the same reason why I like Prosh, multi-dimensional. Anyway guys, hope you enjoyed this video. Hope you give Yawgmoth a shot. He's getting up there in price like a lot of cards from Modern Horizons, but if you can get one, why not build a deck around him? You guys have a wonderful day. Before you're signing off, see you all next video.